You're listening to the Paranormal Patio Podcast with Jason and John. Pull up a chair.
Hey, it's Jason back again with Paranormal Patio Podcast. On tonight's episode, we've got some strange stories from Georgia, from White County, Georgia, with a pretty interesting gentleman that I met on Reddit. And we have a fairly interesting set of stories. I feel like it's pretty interesting. I'm pretty interested in it. We actually met in a subreddit for the TV show, the documentary Hellier, which I'm a big fan of. And I can't wait to dive into these stories. So, without any further ado, my guest, Caleb Howell. Caleb, how you doing?
How's it going?
It's going really good.
Awesome.
We were talking a little bit before the show started, and I feel like the next time that we take a break, I'm going to also partake and go to the refrigerator. And I may have a beer as well. So,
are there some good breweries up in? You said you're in Illinois.
Yeah. Well, there are some breweries.
I gotcha.
Yeah, we typically travel to Indiana, which is a whopping 35 minutes away.
There you go.
And there's much better. Be west of Indianapolis in a little small city called Terre Haute. They have a wonderful beer there. You may recognize the name Terre Haute from the movie A Christmas Story, and the Santa in the mall scene when he says the line must have stretched all the way to Terre Haute.
Absolutely. I also recognize it from La Dispute's song. Oh my goodness, that's what's that song? I forgot. It's the first song on their not the latest album, but yeah, it's a whole thing. That's all.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, like I mentioned, we met up on Reddit, and you had made a post about a couple of interesting synchronicities with Hellier, and I immediately just was like, I'm gonna message this guy, and I want to get some stories out of him because I love this stuff, and this is what I live for. So I don't want you to feel any pressure here, but I want you to blow me away with your amazing stories from beyond, and I can't wait. I'm sitting here on bated breath.
Oh goodness. Well, so I guess I should just go ahead and say kind of why I posted there. I'd never posted there before, but
oh, that was your first post?
No, on Hellier, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've posted on Reddit before.
I thought, man, I've really discovered something here. Okay.
No, just on that subreddit. But the funny thing was that I was just watching it, and I don't know if anybody else that listens has seen Hellier, but it's kind of all about these kind of threads that tie what seemingly seems small into this gigantic kind of story and for lack of a better word, conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
In the most in the best way possible. It's great. But so it kind of gets you in the mindset to kind of see kind of what things are tied together in your life. And they just so happened to mention the town that I had grown up in, or went to high school and everything, and I thought that was just super weird. I was like, wow, that's such a small town, and the only thing that White County is really known for is the birthplace of the Cabbage Patch Kids, which I did with. I was a doctor for a summer at Babyland General, but super fun. But they just kind of mentioned it, and it kind of freaked me out, for lack of a better word. And so I was just like, I've got to say, and that kind of sparked some inspiration of just weird stuff has happened to me there, and my family for that matter. But not to get too into the weeds with backstory and stuff. A lot of the first season's about these kind of little goblin things, and I guess the main story is, or the main two stories are kind of adjacent to that in a sense of me and my friends one night. It was after a play that we were all in. I think it may have been Halloween, or it was around Halloween. I think it was either closing night or maybe halfway through the run or whatever, but that's kind of beside the point. We were all just like, hey, let's go, drive around and just, park somewhere and find some creepy stuff to look at, let's try to scare each other.
Mm-hmm.
As, typical high school kids are bound to do. No drugs or alcohol in these stories either, so
good for you.
This is all completely sober, which makes it even scarier to me. But so there's a couple of places around that they had been to before. It was my first time going, and I kind of wasn't down for it. Like I was kind of like, I'm not super into being scared. Like I'm not a huge horror movie buff or anything like that. But I was like, sure, I'll tag along. Seems like a fun time. But the first story is like we went to this church. I don't even remember what church it was, to be honest with you. But it has like a big cemetery in the back behind it, as most churches do. And in the cemetery, like you kind of have to go back into the woods, but there's a dollhouse, or I guess the kind of town just calls it the dollhouse. But the thing is that there's all these legends, like, oh, if you stay like all night at the dollhouse, like you'll hear, the kid, like the dead child crying or screaming or blah blah blah. You'll be in for a good spook.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like toys and stuff that are like laid out for just as people leaving, like kind of memorializing sort of thing.
Sure.
But I totally wasn't down to go hang out at the dollhouse all night because I'm I'm a scaredy cat, and I was like, I don't want to do that. That sounds like crazy. But the scarier thing was that they all decided to, so I hung out next to the car, like by myself. And I don't know how long they were gone. It felt like maybe about 20 or 30 minutes or so, but I was just kind of chilling and like on my phone, But all of a sudden, like I just was looking up and kind of browsing like the tops of the gravestones, or the tombstones, and something just kind of caught my eye, and it kind of moved from behind one gravestone to another. And it didn't look like really solid. It looked kind of like a shadow sort of thing, but it moved behind from one to the other, kind of right to left. And actually, I was like, that's just my eyes playing tricks on me, or like the light reflecting off cars driving by or whatever.
Right.
But then like I was kind of looked back down at my phone and then was just glancing to see if they were coming back or whatever. But I'm just going to call it thing or shadow or little Hellier-esque goblin creature, whatever, like kind of peeked over the headstone, like, and I could see its eyes. It was like these eyes were either yellow or red. Like I said, I'm kind of bringing things back to memory as I'm talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like kind of short, and it was humanoid shaped, and it looked like I said, like it just looked like shadow, like just shadow incarnate. Couldn't see through it, but it was kind of like wispy or whatever. And so I kind of watched it for a little bit, and it was obviously watching me, whatever it was. But it was just kind of like, I didn't even feel, I would say, like threatened or anything, which is kind of weird, because it was just kind of like curious. But don't get me wrong, I was like scared like to death. It was terrifying, especially coming from, like we were talking about earlier, like my background of like, ghosts aren't real, none of this stuff is real, like, and but like eventually I saw them like kind of coming back. Their flashlights were like kind of cutting back up through the woods, and I was like, they said I came back and I looked like I had seen a ghost. It looked like I had seen a ghost. Like my eyes were just wide, and like I was kind of like, not like crying, just freaking out. They could tell.
Right.
I was freaking out. Rightfully so.
Sure.
And so they were like, oh my god, like what happened? And I was just like, I was like, nothing happened. Like everything's good. Like it's cool. Cause I didn't want to seem like I was crazy. Cause I mean, they were all coming back like, laughing and, cutting up and like, just having fun. And I'm over here like crapping myself. Like, what the hell did I just see? I was like, what was that? And, but one of my friends that was there is like super like Pentecostal Christian, which is I don't know the whole backstory of like Pentecostal or whatever, but they're really into like spirit, not into, but like they really do believe in like spirits and like angels and demons and stuff, and I do believe that as well, but maybe not to the sense of they do, but he was like, yeah, I was getting a bad vibe the entire time. Like, I mean, he was still having fun and stuff, but he was just having a bad vibe the entire time. And he's, actually, that kind of flows perfectly into my other story. There was one night I remember he was at school, and you could tell something was up. Like, he was worried about something. And he comes up to me and he's just like, hey, I know we have like class tomorrow, but can you come over and like hang out with me for the night? Like, we can watch movies or whatever. He's like, I can't be in my house alone. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, but you live with your mom. And he's like, yeah, she's out of town for a couple of days. Like, I need someone to like come and stay with me for a night. And it was just weird because he kind of opened up to me about some sort of things, like things that he's like seen and stuff like that. And he says that like at his house, like there's just this really, really like dark energy, like really, really dark. And I was just like, okay, I mean, it's not like an old house or anything. It's just I think it was like a 3-bedroom, just not even like townhouse. It was kind of back into the woods, but it wasn't like far off the beaten trail. You didn't like have to like hike a mile, in the woods uphill both ways. But I was like, all right, yeah, that's cool. Like we can chill, watch movies, get some pizza or something like that. And like it got to a point where it was pretty much he was like afraid to walk from like the front door to get something out of his car.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really strange. And I kind of finally got the guts to just be like, what are you seeing? Like, what's going on? And he had told me that there's like this like being or energy or spirit or something that had been like following him around, and like it's like the strongest like at his house, and which is really strange, like I said, because it's not, like I said, it's like not an old house or anything like that. But he said he'd like seen things outside, like peeking in the windows. I'm scaring myself talking about this in my apartment. Cause yeah, I mean, that was like, that night, he was just super on edge, and you could tell that he was like, he's not happy. But we finally decided to go to bed, and he was like, you can just like crash in my room or whatever, that's fine. But so like we finally went to bed. And I didn't sleep like at all that night, which was fun because there would be some points where he would like kind of just sit up in bed and just kind of mumble under his breath, and you couldn't understand what he was saying. Excuse me. And he'd just like kind of sit like straight up, and he wouldn't be awake. He'd just be like sitting straight up and then like mumbling to himself, and then like he just go right back, and I was not chill with that night. I was not having fun with that.
Your emotions are already heightened.
Yeah, he'd already talked
so scared.
He'd already talked this big game of like, oh, this is all that's going on, blah 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 blah, and so I'm already like on edge, he was talking like I said, into sleep, and like I just couldn't do it. And but the next morning, like we both woke up and were like getting ready for school and stuff. And I kind of looked at him and I was just like, "Are you okay? Like you good? I mean, you were up like all night last night." And he goes, "I was?" And I said, "Yeah, you just like sit up like straight up in bed and you were like mumbling under your breath, and I didn't really know what was going on." And he was like, he goes, "I don't remember being up, but I do remember one time where I looked into the corner of the room and like there was something there. And it was like this big, like he said it was a big kind of like black mass. And he said that it was what had been like following him around for a while. And
man,
yeah, that was crazy. He said he'd hear like things at night, like like either like knocking on the windows or like scratching the window, not like raking fingers down the windows or whatever,
right.
but just like taps and stuff. But
so did you experience any of what he had said that night?
Yeah, I mean, it was more just like a bad vibe, like I said, that was, I mean, it wasn't like, I don't know if I'm just not as like super sensitive to it, or if whatever was there just didn't want itself to be known to me, but to be known to the only person that really like, I don't want to say believed, but the only person that, acknowledged that like, hey, and a lot of the, I'm going to get kind of, not really backstory, but, and like, the Pentecostal and in Christianity generally, like we have these things called spiritual gifts that one of them is like called discernment, and it's like you can determine like good or bad spirits. And so, I mean, he's told me that like he's seen other things besides that, and that like he fully believed 100% like this was like a demon that was trying to like, you know, get at him. Which really made me feel great that I was sleeping like maybe 5 feet away from him.
Meanwhile, he's sitting up in the middle of the night and mumbling and
breath. Yeah.
So, besides your personal experiences that you just talked about, like, I understand that there's some other stories that you have that are not personal to you per se, but stories that of the area that are creepy or odd, local legend type of things, and then your grandparents and some sort of fire on the mountain.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you got it there. But my grandfather was one of the superintendents at a park that's up there, up in North Georgia, where I used to live, and it was him, and I know my grandmother and him, and then my mother. I don't know if my other her siblings were there or not, but I said that they were like driving home from church one night, and there was this like big ring of fire up on the mountain, and if you know anything about, and it's kind of like the Appalachian foothills, is that they're not like super tall mountains, but they're usually have a lot of trees and stuff. So obviously a giant fire on a mountain is cause for concern, and
sure.
especially for the superintendent of the park that the mountain is located in. But so they kind of stopped and like looked at it, and it didn't like move or anything. It was just kind of there. But he decided like to call the park rangers to kind of see what was going on, and they didn't. Whenever they got there, they didn't see anything. But they had already gone back home. My grandparents and my family had already gone back home. But you know, the next morning, like they went back to kind of go see what that was, and maybe it was just, you know, something happens, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like no evidence of like anything, and they didn't like climb up to it, like to the spot where they saw it. But it's really weird because like my mother is not down with the whole paranormal jig. Like she's very kind of just like, you know, what's here is here and what's there is there, like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But even I was talking to her this weekend, and I was trying to kind of get her like side of the story, or not her side of the story, but just kind of get the story refreshed in general. And she was just like, yeah, I have no idea what happened with that. Like, that was so strange. It made absolutely zero sense. And that's a story that I'd heard since I was a kid.
Right.
Just, you know, I'd be like, hey, Grandma, tell me about the time, you know, like, time you saw the fire on the mountain. And she's just like, again? Like, you want to hear this again? Like, I'm like, yeah, why not? But yeah, I mean, there's some, and we were talking about it kind of earlier, that where I lived is very, I mean, it's North Georgia. It's pretty much as rural as you can get. I mean, it's, you know, pastures and you know, fields and, you know, all this stuff.
I can relate.
Yeah, exactly. But there's like this kind of area that it's like I said enclave earlier. I didn't like that. It's more just like kind of like a free-spirited sort of area that's definitely a little more open-minded than the city proper. Great place, wonderful people. A lot of my friends lived over there. There's a great coffee shop over there. It's one of my favorite places to go whenever I'm back up in my old hometown. But it's definitely more of kind of the free-spirited, open-minded sort of thing. But and that kind of goes back to the whole like Hellier thing with you know, them trying to do like like if you call it like chaos magic, like, you know, they were talking about chaos magic and all that fun stuff. But I can imagine that in that kind of area, that stuff like that's probably gone down. You know, probably at least this, if not large, at least a significant, I guess, like Wiccan population, which is totally, you know, fine with me.
Right.
Do what you want to. But So then they're talking about that, and then that just kind of happened with the whole fire thing. But even in my small town, like, I'm just like, oh, there is still, local legends and stuff like that.
Right.
The funny thing is that I was saying that my mom's not like super down with the paranormal or whatever, but I know for a fact that there is at least 2 separate occasions that she has used a Ouija board. So, and whether
Well,
or
she
not
admit to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2 that she admits to anyway. I don't know a whole lot about Mom before she was my mom, so I think
Before she became mom, she was a person, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. She had a whole life, She's been not my mom longer than she's been my mom, so.
Right.
But I remember one night she was telling me about she was with some friends back up at the lodge at the park that they lived on, and I don't know if alcohol was involved in this because they were probably in high school, and I think they were a little bit more wild than I was. I was a pretty laid back kid in high school. I didn't really go out on any ragers, and not because I wasn't invited to them. That's only part of the issue. But yeah, she was telling me the story about one night that they were like, just messing around, like, oh, let's pull out the Ouija board and let's just do, just have some fun with it or whatever. And she says that the board spelled out like they were playing, and that it spelled out like blood will be spilt tonight, or blood will be spilt, or something like that. And then later that night, one of her friends like fell down the stairs and broke both of her arms.
Oh, goodness.
And like one of the arms, like it was like a compound fracture on one arm, and so that means like the bone's like sticking through the skin. So blood was spilt that night, and that's really weird. And I think that was she didn't. That was the first time she'd ever used one. She was like, I'm never gonna do that again. But
So
another
she did.
yeah. So then she did, but this was like years and years later. And this was probably. Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't even my mom. It was my aunt, which was there that night that the whole blood will be spilt thing will happen. So it was still her. Sorry, getting my wires crossed. But she was telling me one story about. This was right after my uncle had died, or her husband had died. My aunt's husband, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And that she was going through like really, really tough time. I mean, it was like super sudden. It was not a good time. But she decided there was alcohol involved with this, so I know. But she decided to get together with some friends, and one of them had a Ouija board, and they were playing with it and stuff, and she was just like, if my husband's here, like, tell me where the money's buried, like, as a joke. And the board spelled out doghouse. But the funny thing was that doghouse was spelled D-A-W-G, which is kind of weird because, being in Georgia, we're huge college football fans. You have the Georgia Bulldogs down here, and, it's always go Dogs, but dogs is spelled D-A-W-G-S.
Right.
And so they never, like, dug it up or anything. I mean, everything's still there. And I don't know if there's money buried under there or not, but it's just kind of a funny story.
Some weekend, you need to find out.
Yeah. Well, they sold the house, so I don't know if the person who
I
lives
said what
there
I said. So, going back to the fire on the mountain, the Travis Walton alien abduction story, I'm not sure if you're familiar. They made a movie in the early 90s called Fire in the Sky, based on this story. And in the interviews that I've read with Travis Walton and in the movie, they described just these lumberjacks, and they're out, doing lumberjack things, and it's dark, and they're coming back home for the day. And it's like, hey, the forest is on fire. Like, we need to get over there and see if we can, do anything to, stop the spread of this fire. So it's just this big, bright red, orange glow, and they keep, they're taking all these dirt paths and things with this old beat up truck, and they get over there, and this light is actually coming from what they say was a spacecraft. And Travis Walton, one of the guys that's on the crew, he gets out and he's like mesmerized by it, and this blue beam shoots out of it and knocks him off of his feet and knocks him back like 6 feet, lands on his back. the other guys in the truck all think he's dead, so they leave him.
Oh
And they're,
gosh.
they're like, we have to go get help. Like, we can't. What are we gonna do? So they come back and he's gone, and there's like no evidence of anything. So automatically they're under suspicion for killing this guy. So something like 5 days later, this the guy who's in charge of the crew is the brother of the woman that Travis Walton is dating, and he gets a phone call in the middle of the night. And I guess they'd been getting like prank calls and stuff, like calling him a murderer, and so he's pissed. Like, he picks up the phone, people leave me alone or whatever, and it's Travis. And he's like, Mike, like, I need you to come pick me up. He's like, I'm at this gas station or whatever. And he had no idea how long he had been gone.
Jeez.
He had no idea what happened. He's naked in this phone booth at like this service station in the middle of the night. It's pouring down rain. But yeah, so like the Fire on the Mountain thing, like, that was immediately what I thought of, was Fire in the Sky, which is a terrific movie. How true it is to the story is up for debate, but
There's always artistic liberties that are taken.
sure, absolutely. It's pretty consistent though with, from my limited research on it, like with the interviews that I've read, and but you should totally watch it, because that could be your Fire on the Mountain.
Definitely. Well, my mother did, or my family didn't get abducted, which that'd be one hell of a story, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
they would be. Thankfully, they weren't.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be here if they weren't. So. But
I mean, I'm not real great with my, upper Georgia geography.
I'm not great with my Illinois geography either. Don't feel bad.
So, like, from where you grew up, like, where is that to where Deliverance was filmed?
So it's actually like just a couple of towns to the northeast. One of my mom's friends has a lake house that's actually in the same town. And I've actually whitewater rafted on the river that they filmed Deliverance on.
Okay.
That's kind of cool. And I think one of the I haven't seen Deliverance. I probably should watch it just for the North Georgia, like, woohoo. But one of the guys that was in that was like, he was a kid in the movie or something like that. He actually works at the Walmart that's in Rabun County, so he's like still up there. I don't know, like, I would assume he's not like rich and famous because he's working at a Walmart. I don't know this guy from Adam, so I'm not gonna say anything like that. Right. I don't know, but that's just it's kind of cool.
I'm gonna attempt to blow your mind.
Uh-huh.
Are you ready?
Go for it.
Sitting down? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sitting down.
Hellier and Deliverance related. So, I don't remember if this is something that was on Hellier or if it was from my own reading, but in one of Alan Greenfield's books, which there are multiple interviews with Terry Riss, not just the ones that they talked about on Hellier, but one of them, they're talking about Deliverance and about a cave base. And he says that you can actually see the entrance to this alien cave base from the river in the rafting scene in Deliverance. So you have probably been right past the cave.
Man, come on. Can't do that to me. It's already like 11:30 here, and I'm already spooked and probably going to stay up until 3 or 4 in the morning.
Why did you stop when you were so close?
I didn't know it was there. It was.
Well, you
so
have to go back.
I gotta go back. Man, this is completely off topic, but that whitewater rafting trip was so sketchy. It was like a whole day, and we flipped the raft, and the guy was like, "Well, that's the first time this has happened this year." I was like, "All right, cool." I almost drowned. Like 3 of my family almost drowned. Like it was cool. It was a great day, let me tell you.
Wow.
Once again, super off topic, but one of my cousins was actually. We got there, and he was like, "I'm not doing this. Like, I'm going home. Like, I'm not gonna do this." But
well, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were right there in the thick of it, and you had no idea.
Maybe that's where all this started.
Now I've got you thinking.
Maybe everything led up to this.
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
random guy hitting me up on Reddit and being like, "Yo, you seem to have some pretty cool stories. You want to do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. Why not? I got nothing better to do."
Now I have to begin my strategy for talking you into going back to the river and doing more rafting.
I think that a few of my friends actually are raft guides there now, so I could probably get a pretty good deal, if not free. So
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. You have to watch Deliverance, and you have to watch that scene, and you have to keep your eyes open because Terry Risk says you can see the entrance from that scene.
I'm gonna get an email from Terry
Together.
Risk tonight at like 2 in the
Oh, I
morning.
hope so. If you do, you have to call him, or you have to like get me back on Skype because
Oh,
I have
absolutely.
to know. So, but yeah, you need to like dissect that scene and like with your own memory and with talking to your buddies or whatever, like you have to find out exactly where it's at. And then I don't want to go there. I don't really want you to go there, but we need to get somebody there. Like, hey, this is the spot where we think it is, and somebody will go there.
Man, I'll do it. I don't know if it'll be anytime soon. I'm living a little north of Atlanta now, so it's not really hard for me to get up there, but we'll see. Maybe after all this crap is over with the virus, or the virus and stuff. But
you have to promise that if you're able to pull this off, I have to know about it.
That sounds like a plan. I'll let you know definitely.
Man, see, this stuff just comes full circle here. This is how it all works. This is how all this weird stuff ties together.
The funny thing was that I was talking to my mom about Hellier, and which I feel like was kind of a bad mistake on my, not really a bad mistake on my part, but I think she may think of me different now. But I was just like, yeah, so it kind of starts here, and then like it all these things tie together, and it's just weird and blah 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 blah. And then they mentioned our hometown, and it was just really strange. She looked at me like I was like dead. She looked at me like I was a crazy person, and I was like, it's okay, it's fine.
I love it.
I'm like, it's cool.
It's fun.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I'll definitely, if I ever, I'll have to hit up one of my friends and be like, yo, I'll do it with the premise of we have to go find this alien base. How about that?
That's the best way to get anything done, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Just,
this is what I want.
Walk up to a person and say that, and then they not act on it. Like anyone is going to be like, oh, you know what? I'm in. Let's do it.
Well, maybe not anyone where I grew up. They probably look at me like I'm crazy.
They're probably like, we do that every Tuesday. What's so special?
You're like, that's just a regular Tuesday night in White County. You just go look for alien bases.
Right. We know where they all are. I don't know. Why is this such a secret?
Exactly. But kind of going back to the night where, not the night where my friend was like up all night, but whenever I saw the little like goblin deal thing or whatever the heck that was, for like a few weeks after that, one of the guys who was in the play that I was in was just like different. Like he didn't. I don't want to say different as in like acting weird. He was just like always really really sad. Like, or he just didn't seem like happy. And so this is kind of off the wall, but I mean, I feel like his girlfriend at the time was like, he's just not acting his normal self. Like it's just really strange. And so we kind of came up with the premise of like, we think that like something that night attached to him, and and you can, there's different accounts of spirits or whatever attaching to people, and then just them being very like downtrodden and I mean, well, depressed for lack of a better word.
Right.
But then it was just really strange, and I mean, he's good now, but I mean, it was at least for, I'd say like a few weeks, if not a month, where it was just, he just didn't want to do anything, like he didn't want to like go and hang out, or it was really strange. And he's usually like he's a really goofy, like outgoing guy. He's off the walls bonkers sometimes. Or at least he was in high school. We don't really talk that much anymore. But even everyone around was just like, what's wrong with him? Like, what's going on? And then we kind of were just like, this is what's going on. This is what we think is going on.
You know what I think is the most interesting part of that story about your night in the cemetery is that you were the only one who didn't want to have anything to do with it, and you're the one who saw something, and you, even though you were absolutely terrified, but you didn't feel threatened by it. It's like it's kind of the phenomena, like showing you, hey, it's okay to look. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, I'm not.
scary.
Yeah, I haven't been in like a cemetery alone in a sense, but I don't plan on fjording any cemeteries anytime soon.
Well, I just think it's odd or interesting that, like, you're the one who saw something, and you're the one who had the least interest in doing the, you know, what you were doing, being a part of the activity. Like you said,
Yeah.
you're by yourself, and like they're out in the woods, you know, having a good time and, you know, doing God knows what. And you're up there all alone, like, man, I just want to go home. And then you're the one who has the most profound experience.
Yeah, the funny thing is that, like, I was just chilling out next to the car. Like, I didn't want to be in the car for some reason. Like, something was just like, I don't want to be in this car. Like, I'm just gonna stand outside the car.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was dark. I mean, it was probably around, like, midnight, 12:30 or so. But, you know, there's, like, street lights and stuff. Or in the parking lot, there was, like, a big street light. And so it wasn't like I was in, like, pure darkness, but I don't think I would have seen anything if I was in pure darkness. And so it is kind of strange that, like, they're the ones who are kind of, you know, goofing around and trying to find something spooky.
Mm-hmm.
And the spooky thing came to the one person who is, who doesn't, yeah, like you said, doesn't want really anything to do with it. And,
right.
Like I said, it was just, that was weird. And, I mean, for lack of a better word, it's just weird. But yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah. I know we went to another church before that, and this church is especially creepy because they leave it unlocked. So I guess, like, people can come and, like, pray and worship or whatever at, like, 2 a.m, which is, I mean, you do you, I'm not gonna judge you, but that seems like a little much for me.
Right.
The first thing I do, the last thing I want to do when I'm, like, awake at night is, like, oh, I'm just gonna go to some random dark church and sit in the front row.
Well, not everybody works the day shift schedule.
Valid point. Yeah, you're right. I didn't for a while, but that's another story.
Mm-hmm.
No creepy hospital stories.
You know, I worked in a hospital for a little while, and everybody, you know, that's in the paranormal stuff is always like, you know, hey, what did you see in the hospital? Because I worked overnights at a hospital as well.
Yeah.
And so the only thing that happened, and I mean, I was probably as white as a ghost myself. So I was going around and checking doors, making sure everything was locked up. And I come around this corner, and I see this woman at the end of the hallway, like in a hospital gown with an IV pole. And this is at like 11:30, 11:45.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I didn't see that. You know, like, I didn't see that. So I make another turn, and I see her at the end of the next hallway. I'm like, okay, something's going on here. So I'm frantic a little bit at this point, and I turn around, and I go back the way I came, and I go up to where she was the first time I saw her, and I turn the corner, look to the left where I had just seen her the second time, and it was just a patient, like, on a walk. But I had, like, a total meltdown over it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, nothing. Like I said, nothing at the hospital was any worse than anything that happened. Like, you know, actual seeing, like, you know, patients and stuff.
Oh yeah, sure.
There's stories there, but they're not paranormal, and you probably don't want to get into those.
No, that's for another podcast.
That's another podcast. Weird hospital story. You can have me back for weird hospital stories too.
Yes.
But I will tell you something. One of my bosses, whenever I was working there, she had to go down to the morgue one time, like at the very bottom of the hospital, because I'm an X-ray tech, so you have to sometimes X-ray dead bodies, which is really weird. But I never had to do that. But she said she had to go down there one time, and there is a phenomenon where, like, you can be deceased and, like, your muscles just kind of do their own thing, especially like newly deceased. This is getting really dark. But she said that one of the like people's heads like turned and looked at her.
Oh man.
And I would have been out of there so fast.
Oh yeah.
I would have been like, oh no, someone else can go down there because I'm not gonna be messing with any of that stuff. Like that's crazy. But that's purely biological. Like,
absolutely.
That happens. Yeah, people's arms will like raise straight up in the air and stuff like that. But
it doesn't make it less creepy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If anything, I feel like it makes it a little bit more creepy. Like, I don't know.
The creepiness factor is decided by how scientifically proven it is, I guess. I mean, you know for a fact that is a physical thing that happens.
Yeah, you're right.
Not even rare, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, it happens, and you're like, well, that's a thing that happened.
Well, that just goes to show you that, this world is really, really weird.
Oh, man.
And I kind of go by the I wouldn't say mantra of if one of anything that's ever been, either all of these people are flat out liars, either I'm a liar and everyone's a liar, or if even one of them is like true, then that kind of it's like an all or nothing sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like if one thing is true, then you can't totally disregard everything. You know what I mean? It's a weird way to kind of phrase it, but
if the possibility exists for one thing to be true, then the possibility exists for all of it to be true.
But I think that this universe is too big for us to be alone.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy. That's all there really is to say about it. Is it just nobody knows everything, and I'd say throughout until we become all knowing and have our brains pushed into computers in the cloud or something like that, we're never going to know everything. And that's what I like to think is that there's always something new to be found. There's always new stories to be had and told, and like sometimes it's good to kind of freak yourself out a little bit. God knows that I've freaked myself out a few times.
A few times this evening.
A few times this evening, yeah. I'm telling you, man, that night, I remember, oh man. And he told me like stories before and stuff.
How is this guy now? Like,
he's good. He lives out on the West Coast. I'm not gonna name names or anything.
No. I don't want to know.
Yeah, he lives out on the West Coast. And I think he actually runs some sort of, let me think of what he does. Hold on, give me a second. He works for some sort of like ministry for like homeless people or something like that, or like less fortunate people, like special needs people and stuff like that. He's a great guy. He just had a kid, or his wife just had his second kid, and I want to go out there so bad to go see them. I miss them a lot.
So, like, what happened? I mean, he's having all this stuff happen. Like, did it just one day just quit? Or
no, I haven't really talked to him about it much, but and this was like in high school and stuff, and
sure.
After college, like we didn't have like a falling out, like everything, people move on and
life happens.
Exactly, and I still fully believe that. I think at some point you just kind of learn to live with it. You know what I mean? And you just kind of like accept it for what it is, and then try to use it as like as an impetus for good.
Sure.
You don't look at it as it's okay. This is what's gonna happen. Like I've got to learn how to just accept it and But I don't know. I haven't like hit him up being like, yo, you got any more like crazy stories?
How do you do that? It's not something that you just do,
Yeah. Super nice guy though, and I believe him to a T. Like I really do. He's very trustworthy. Like he's proven himself to be. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Well, I'm glad things worked out for him.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that could have went a totally different way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he had some like he's had a really dark life. Like that's all I'm really gonna say is that he's had a dark life, and I feel like that people, or not people, but whether you want to call them spirits or angels or demons or whatever, they if you want to get into the kind of religious realm, that they will like attach to people that, you know, or they'll just keep hounding people, you know what I mean, until eventually they break. But I mean, he seems to be doing really, really well, and that's all you can really ask for. He seems to be having a great time, a great time all besides the circumstances of, you know, the whole virus thing.
It's kind of put everybody in a foul mood.
Yeah, you were asking me, you were like, what time do you want to? I'm like, I'm not going to go to bed till like 3, like, and you're like an hour behind me, so I'm like, I'm like, I'll be fine. And there's one more other kind of like legend that kind of floats around, I guess White County, or where I used to live, off this road. It's called Cooley Woods Road, and it's there's an old like mill on the road that everyone in our high school, everyone took their you always take your senior pictures at the mill off of Cooley Woods Road. But there used to be a plantation there back in like the early 1800s and probably late 1700s. That apparently there was this like slave that, I mean, obviously slavery is absolutely terrible, and you know, there's no redeeming qualities to it. That's for darn sure. No. But this slave like was trying to get back at her master and decided to like, I guess, dabble in like voodoo or whatever you want to call it, magic or like dark arts. But there's a story about or that she can transform into a panther now. And one night some guy hit the panther with his car and turned around and nothing was there. This is one of the more kind of outlandish, just kind of like local legends that are around. But that he turned around and like nothing was there, but he did call the police, and they actually the guy found like a big long like black animal hair like in the grill of his car. Well, we do have bears up there, but apparently this hair was too long to be the hair of a bear. But that's kind of like I wouldn't say funny, but it's just kind of the ones that, you know, that your parents tell you to scare you as a kid. Like, don't be out too late, you know, the panther lady will get you. But that one's pretty good. But I mean, there are some other things that are kind of around there. I mean, there's been like Bigfoot sightings, but there's always Bigfoot sightings in North Georgia. The last Bigfoot that quote unquote somebody caught was a gorilla suit stuffed with deer meat, and I'm not kidding you on that. It was a whole big story for our kind of neck of the woods, and then the guys were like, yeah, that was a gorilla suit stuffed with deer meat. They had it in a cooler and like a freezer.
I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah, it's I'm sure. I think it made the rounds. But that was.
This has been a while back, right?
Yeah, it was probably maybe 8 years ago. I think I was still in school.
I remember. I absolutely remember that. Absolutely. All of our local legends, so to speak, involve Crybaby Bridge, where you go at night and you hear a baby being thrown in the water from...
Oh my god, that's so dark.
Yeah, well, here's the thing that makes it less dark, is if you polled 20 people in my area, say, hey, have you heard the story about Crybaby Bridge? I would say probably 6 people would say yes. And then of those 6 people, if you ask them, do you know where it is? They would say yes. I'll tell you exactly where it is. And every one of those places is a different bridge.
A different bridge, yeah.
And I swear there's not one that this ever happened, and I am pretty confident that this is all, you know, just teenagers scaring the crap out of each other, but it's funny. Everybody's, like, spooky legend is, oh, well, you gotta go out to Crybaby Bridge. Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, they did say, you know, in Hellier, that one of the things for UFOs is hearing the either sound of a car door shutting or a baby crying.
Yeah, you're right.
So
we don't have very much in the way of mass sightings of anything except for corn and or we have a lot of that, and no, I mean, every once in a while we'll have a somebody will say they had a UFO, or I have one friend who says that he saw Bigfoot at a deer camp, probably like 9 years ago at this point. And okay, I'll just get into it. It's here it is. So he says him and his mom, I think, are leaving deer camp to run into town to grab something, and they turn the headlights on and they see this Bigfoot like digging through a trash can. And it turns when they turn the lights on, looks at him, and it's half black and half white, and it runs off into the woods. So he told me the area where it was at, and it's around this river bottoms area to the south of the town that we live in. And it's actually like a wildlife preserve, but they allow hunting and stuff there. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh, I guess it's an area that would fit. I happened to look up like the Bigfoot Researcher Sightings website, like where people, from all over the world report seeing Bigfoot, where it was at, and they have like a report on it. Yeah. So I looked, and there's actually 2 sightings in that area, and one of them, the lady says she saw Bigfoot that was half brown and half white, which is a little different, but
up kind of where up where I live, it's a little farther north. It's what we call over the mountain. So it's over the mountain from where I live. Yeah, there's actually a kind of, it's called Expedition Bigfoot, and it's like this little shack. It's not really a shack. Like it's really cool actually. My ex took me there one time because she knew I was kind of into paranormal stuff, and it's just this kind of like little maybe 5 or 6 room museum that's just like dedicated to Bigfoot, and they say it's like it's a working like Bigfoot like lab or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool. Like it actually is kind of cool just to kind of immerse yourself and just like let's learn about this, whether it may be real or not. Mm-hmm. And so I would highly recommend if any of the listeners are ever in North Georgia to go to Expedition Bigfoot. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. Great date.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank you so much for listening to some stranger from Reddit and answering a message and saying, yeah, I'd love to talk about my stuff. I'd love to do the show. So thank you for taking time out of your evening to converse with me here in the Paranormal Patio.
Yeah, definitely. It was a blast. Like, this was actually a lot of fun. And
you were all nervous.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's just like talking. It's great. This is the first social interaction I've had outside of work or my friends playing Xbox in like weeks, so.
I'm happy I could provide that for you.
Definitely, and I would be more than happy to, if you ever want to have me back on, that'd be awesome.
Well, I need you to watch Deliverance, and I need you to find this cave space because it's very important in my life to know.
I will do my best. It may not be soon, but you may be getting I'll hit you up maybe a couple years from now and be like, yo, by the way, I got abducted.
Hopefully it doesn't go that route. But yeah. We need to send a total stranger there.
Absolutely. That'd be
that sounds terrible.
Best. Here's $500.
All right. Well, thank you again for being a part of the Paranormal Patio, and I would absolutely love to have you back. We'll figure out something at some point in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, until next time, I've been Jason.
Hey, I'm sorry. I totally messed your outro up. And I'm Caleb.
And you're Caleb. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Until next time, keep the fire going.